Imagine reaching the pinnacle of your career, making television history and becoming a household name, all while living through a medical nightmare that would break the strongest of souls. This is the story of a woman who didn't just break barriers, she shattered them, even as her own world went dark. It is a story of a mother's ultimate sacrifice, a performer's relentless grit, and a legacy that changed the face of British television forever. Most people know her as the witty, mischievous Lizzie Lakely from Emmerdale, but the woman behind the character, Kitty McGeever, lived a life that was more dramatic, more tragic, and more inspiring than any soap opera script could ever hope to capture. Before she was a pioneer, she was Catherine Mitchell, a young girl from Leeds with a fire in her belly for the performing arts. She wasn't born into the spotlight. She fought for every inch of it. After training at the prestigious Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, she found herself at a crossroads. There was another performer already using her birth name, and in the world of acting, your name is your brand. She chose Kitty McGeever, a name that would soon become synonymous with resilience. But as her career began to simmer, her health began to boil over. At the age of 19, a diagnosis of diabetes threatened to derail her dreams. At the time, it seemed like a manageable hurdle. But little did she know, this was the first domino in a line of catastrophes that would test the very limits of human endurance. 13 years after her diagnosis, life seemed to be offering her the greatest gift of all, motherhood. But the joy of pregnancy was quickly eclipsed by a terrifying condition known as preeclampsia. Her body was under siege. At 7 months, her son Felix was born, 2 months before he was ready to face the world. The tiny infant was immediately plunged into a fight for survival, battling severe heart and lung complications. For 15 months, Kitty lived in the agonizing limbo of hospital corridors and the rhythmic hum of ventilators. She watched her son struggle for every breath, a sight that no mother should ever have to witness. The breaking point came in a moment of profound, heart-wrenching clarity. Speaking later about that impossible day, Kitty described the sheer exhaustion in her son's eyes. She knew he had had enough. In an act of pure, selfless love, she made the decision to stop the machines. She told the doctors to take him off the ventilator, and in a moment of quiet, devastating peace, she let him die in her arms. It was a loss that would have ended most people. But for Kitty, the grief was so intense that her own body began to physically collapse under the weight of it. If you are moved by this story of incredible strength and want to see more deep dives into the lives of those who changed our world, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Your support allows us to keep sharing these powerful legacies. The aftermath of Felix's death was a cascade of medical failures. The human spirit can only take so much before the physical form gives way. Kitty's kidneys ceased to function. Her heart began to fail. And then, the most terrifying development of all, her vision began to flicker. Doctors diagnosed her with diabetic retinopathy, a condition they said usually takes a decade to claim someone's sight. But Kitty wasn't living a usual life. The sheer, unadulterated stress of losing her child and the collapse of her health accelerated the process. What should have taken 10 years happened in just 5 months. By the age of 33, the world had gone dark. Most would have retreated into the shadows, but Kitty McGeever was not most people. She didn't just learn to live as a blind woman. She used her experience as a foundation for a new kind of art. She developed a one-woman stage production that explored the humor, the frustration, and the reality of losing one's sight. It was during one of these performances that fate intervened. Producers from the long-running ITV soap Emmerdale were in the audience. They weren't just looking for an actress, they were looking for a way to bring authenticity to the screen. They saw Kitty's spark, her timing, and her refusal to be a victim. They approached her with a proposition. Help us create the first authentic blind character in British soap history. Kitty didn't just accept the role, she molded it. She didn't want Lizzie Lakely to be a figure of pity. She wanted her to be sharp, funny, and a bit of a troublemaker. When Lizzie first arrived in the village in 2009, she wasn't introduced through her disability, but through her circumstances. She was Lisa Dingle's cousin, arriving with an electronic tag on her ankle after a brush with the law. She was a petty criminal with a heart of gold and a tongue like a razor. The logistics of being a blind actress on a fast-paced television set were staggering. While other actors glanced at their scripts in the makeup chair, Kitty spent hours listening to audio recordings, memorizing not just her lines, but the cadence and timing of the entire scene. On set, she was accompanied by 2 government-sponsored assistants who helped her navigate the complex layouts of the studios and the outdoor sets. She had to memorize the map of every room, knowing exactly how many steps it took to reach a table or a doorway, all while delivering a performance that felt natural and effortless. Her storylines were far from the inspirational tropes often assigned to characters with disabilities. Lizzie Lakely was a schemer. She famously got involved in Eric Pollard's council election campaign, showing no qualms about accepting bribes for her support. She was a character who lived in the gray areas of morality, making her feel real and vibrant to millions of viewers. Kitty proved to the world that being blind didn't define a person's character. It was simply one part of a much larger, more complex puzzle. But behind the scenes, the battle with her health never truly ended. Even during her peak years on the show, she was struggling. She once recalled the terrifying period leading up to her blindness, where her body was filling with fluid due to kidney failure, leading directly to heart failure. She told the press that she realized something was drastically wrong when her vision began to warp, but the speed of the decline caught even the specialists off guard. The stress of her life had literally robbed her of her eyes. By 2013, the grueling schedule of a daily soap opera became too much for her failing body. Her health took another sharp decline, forcing her to make the heartbreaking decision to leave the show and the character she loved. She spent the next 2 years out of the spotlight, focusing on her survival. She was placed on the waiting list for another kidney transplant, a beacon of hope that she clung to as her strength ebbed away. She remained a symbol of hope for many, a trailblazer who had shown that disability was not a barrier to excellence. Tragically, the transplant she so desperately needed didn't come in time. On August 16, 2015, at the age of 48, Kitty McGeever passed away. She was surrounded by her family, the people who had stood by her through the loss of her son, the loss of her sight, and her meteoric rise to fame. The news sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. The tributes that poured in weren't just about her acting talent, but about her spirit. A spokeswoman for Emmerdale noted that she was a loving and much-loved member of the team, a woman whose presence had enriched the show and the lives of those who watched it. Kitty's legacy is one of firsts, but it is also one of endurance. She was the first blind actress to be a series regular in a British soap, but more importantly, she was an actress who happened to be blind. She refused to be a token or a caricature. She demanded authenticity, and she delivered it with every scene. Her portrayal of Lizzie Lakely broke down doors for disabled performers across the globe, proving that the only real limits are the ones society places on us. When we look back at the history of television, Kitty McGeever stands as a titan of the medium. She navigated a world designed for the sighted, mastered a craft that relies heavily on visual cues, and did it all while carrying the heavy burden of personal grief. She turned her pain into art and her obstacles into stepping stones. Her story is a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there is a light that can be found, if we are brave enough to keep searching for it. The impact of her 4 years on Emmerdale continues to be felt today. Casting directors and producers now look at disability through a different lens, thanks in no small part to the path Kitty blazed. She showed that a character's disability can be a part of their story without being the whole story. She gave a voice to the voiceless and sight to those who refuse to see the potential in everyone, regardless of their physical limitations. As we conclude this chapter of her story, we remember not just the actress, but the mother who held her son as he passed, the woman who learned to navigate a new world of shadows, and the performer who made us laugh and cry in equal measure. Kitty McGeever was a rare gem, a woman of profound depth and iron will. Her life may have been cut short, but the trail she left behind is wide enough for many to follow. The The story of Kitty McGeever isn't just a biography. It's a testament to the power of the human heart. It tells us that no matter how many times we are knocked down, no matter how much we lose, we still have the capacity to create something beautiful. We still have the power to change the world. Kitty did exactly that. One scene, one step, and one breath at a time. She remains and will always be a true icon of the screen and a hero of the spirit.